Welcome, everyone, and congratulations for being here. You're investing your time and energy into something that it's my intention to make worthwhile for you. Let's begin with a little relaxing meditation. Just sit very comfortably and take a deep breath and just relax your body as you breathe out. And take another deep breath. And relax your mind as you breathe out. Just let all thought go for a moment. Take another deep breath. And let everything go. Just let it go as you breathe out. I call this my 3-breath entry, and just enter into a state of relaxation and a state of sensing your being, as Eckhart so beautifully calls it, or your presence. Just a relaxed awareness, sensing your awareness. As thoughts arise, just let them go for a minute. As feelings arise, let them go. Just relax. Let everything go. We've all had our active day. Now is the time to just relax and just enjoy being here right in this moment. It feels good to really relax. Eckhart said once in a talk exactly what my Zen teacher said once in a talk. He said, "In this moment now, what do you need? What do you need in this moment now?" And of course the answer is, we need very little. We need to breathe, and that's about it in this moment. We don't need to plan ahead. We don't need to think about things. Just let everything go. Be open to what you hear. Take it in. Take in what works for you and let go what doesn't work for you. Take what you need and leave the rest. I'll talk for a while, and then I'll open it up to some questions. As I do my writing and as I do this talking, it's so good for me because it forces me to remember how it was when I was young and struggling, and what happened to turn things around so remarkably in my early 30s. And that's the theme I keep getting back to over and over. And in a way, I keep saying the same thing over and over, but I say it in many different ways and in many different words. And I do try to give the essence away of what I know every time I talk. What is the essential thing that changed? And one thing that has come up that I realized was really essential right around my mid-30s, right when everything turned around and I went from a struggling, frustrated poverty case to being very successful and having even more abundance than I would have dared to dream of a few years before that. One thing that really changed was I learned to trust myself and trust my own internal guidance. I learned to listen to the voice within, and I realized I'm doing it my way and doing it in an absolutely unique way that's perfectly fitted for me. Now, what brought about that? How did I come to that realization? When I look back, I realize I had some good teachers along the way, and I had some bad ones. just like everything else, just like every other category of people, we have good and bad teachers in our lives, good and bad gurus in our lives. The good ones, the good teachers we have in school, can make any topic fascinating to us and can somehow make it relevant to us and stir our interest in our souls and our creativity with their subject. The bad ones can take any topic and make it completely boring and completely irrelevant to our lives. After school, I went on to try several different gurus. First spiritual gurus and then even a financial guru or two. And it's true with gurus as well. There's good ones and there's bad ones. The bad gurus are telling you basically to do it their way or to do it in a particular way that may or may not be appropriate for you. The bad spiritual gurus even breed dependence on them. The good gurus always point within you. Always keep saying, that's where you find the answers, within you. The good gurus are gurus only for a short time as they help you on finding your own footing. They help you onto your own feet as they point out the path and say, you are unique, you are an original, and you have within you everything you need to succeed brilliantly, to live the life of your dreams, to do what you love to do and make it work for you. All the answers are within you. All the answers. I've heard some people complain about some other teachers and gurus saying the systems that they have them set up are so complex and laborious that they just don't work for them. Or there's, of course, all the different gurus that have particular ways of being in the world, and different financial gurus that have their particular ways of making money. Some say real estate is the way. Some say, this or that specific thing is the way. All those people are limited, and they're limiting for us. It's just like playing music. When we learn an instrument at first, we learn the basics that everybody who plays that instrument needs to know. And then we start playing other people's music. We start by learning songs other people have played. Eventually, we start playing either other people's music in our own way, or some of us end up writing our own music. And that's the way, of course, the only way to really be successful is find your own path to success. Because, of course, what every person defines as success is different for each person. What's successful for me may be totally different for you. And I sometimes, I'm surprised at some people's feedback to my work. Sometimes they get upset as if I'm telling them that they're doing it wrong and that they should do it my way. But I've never, ever said that. I don't say that. I don't say do it my way. I tell what my way is because that's the way I'm totally familiar with. Yes, I'm lazy. I'm disorganized. I'm a creative artist that would far rather play music and wander around my house than sit there working in an office. And so I've done it my way. I've figured out my way of working. But I'm not recommending that for anybody else. Find your own way. Be an original. That's what I'm encouraging. Within you. The answers are within you. Don't let anyone else tell you. Take any advice you get from anyone with a grain of salt. from anyone, including me, including your parents, including your husband or wife, including any guru you really respect. Take anything they say in and see what's appropriate for you. I studied for 3.5 years in my early 20s with a Tibetan guru, and I finally ended up leaving that Tibetan center because I felt he was not a good guru, basically, for most of the students. And it was because he was very traditional. He came out of Tibet, and another world to us, another planet, a very different world. And all he knew, and his gift to humanity is his tradition. And so what he preached was, pick a tradition and stick with it. And his tradition was Tibetan Buddhism. His great challenge was trying to translate Tibetan Buddhism into the West. He's here in America. And I look at him now as he's of the first generation of Tibetan Buddhism in America. And it will change, and I'll be fascinated to see. I hope I live a long time because I want to see the changes and adaptations it goes through. The history of Buddhism, which is a brilliant psychology and philosophy more than a religion, is that wherever it travels, it completely changes to finally reflect the values of the culture that it moves into. There is not yet an American Buddhism. There's still Tibetan Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, Buddhism from China. It's all here in America, and we're forging an American Buddhism. I think the power of now could be called American Buddhism. It also, he draws from Christianity, he draws from A Course in Miracles, he draws from a lot of things. But where he leads is absolutely, in my opinion, where Buddha led. So I finally left the Tibetan Center because I felt like in trying to embrace that tradition, everyone there, including me, cut off from our own past and our own experience in the U.S., and ultimately it meant we even were cutting off from our own intuition. We were trying to find everything within this foreign tradition, where I finally came to realize, no, I have to embrace everything. I have to embrace what my Tibetan guru very derisively called spiritual soup. He felt, if you start mixing traditions, you get spiritual soup, and that's terrible. But I realized, no, for me, that's exactly what I have to do. And God bless Thich Nhat Hanh. Years ago I heard him, he was asked a question. He had just gone to an Episcopal church service, I think it was, or something. And here he's a Buddhist from Vietnam. And they said, well, isn't that spiritual soup? And he said, I love spiritual soup. And I thought that was so wonderful. And it freed me up to say, yes, that's my path, to take what works for me and leave the rest, and to embrace everything, to embrace every moment of my history and everything I ever learned, and embrace it all. It's all, everything, every moment of our lives has led to this moment right now, which has its own absolute perfection. Now, one great thing I did learn from my guru, and there were actually many great things from my Tibetan teacher, one of the first talks he ever gave, he said, there's 3 stages to learning. The first stage, we simply have to be open to take in, be open and relaxed. That's why we start with the relaxing breath. We start by just relaxing and letting go. And then, hopefully, you're open and receptive to these words, and you just take in these words. When you take them in, these words are just more information in your brain. You take in the information. The second stage then that he stressed is you reflect on these words after. You reflect. You take time to think about what I'm saying, or what he said in his case, and compare it with your own experience. Think about it. Does it work for you? How does that relate to your own experience? How can you relate to these words? Do they work for you or do they not? There was a famous quote of Buddha just before he died. He said to his disciples, don't accept things I said just because I said it. Take it in and make sure that it's aligned with your own experience. I'm paraphrasing. He said it quite differently, I'm sure, but take in everything I say and test it with your own experience, your own knowledge. And then when you do, that information that you heard becomes knowledge. It becomes knowledge. You know it because it relates to your life. Then the third stage, you act on that knowledge. That knowledge affects your action in the world and even your thoughts. And at that point, that knowledge has become wisdom. And that's the path to wisdom. It takes first being open and hearing the information. I'm sorry, that's my phone ringing. But it's a little Bach. We'll have a little Bach in the background now. You take in the information, then you evaluate it, you think about it, you accept what works for you. You even reword it, put it in your own words, related to your own experience. And then that knowledge starts affecting your actions. And that is the path to wisdom. So that I learned from my Tibetan guru, and I never ever forgot that. And to this day, I spend a lot of time just walking around my house, reflecting on things, thinking about things I heard, thinking about things I'm going to say. And in that process, information becomes knowledge, and that knowledge becomes wisdom. Within that, then, you find your own way. A very good way to start is the way I started. Write down, take a sheet of paper, write ideal scene at the top, and imagine your dream life in 5 years. Imagine it's 2014 now, nearly 2015. What kind of life do you have? What kind of life do you want? What do you dream of? What is your dream really? That little exercise tricks you into finding out, what does success mean for you? I've never heard of two identical ideal scenes. I've heard of a great many similar ones. Many people want to be writers and teachers and consultants and build spiritual centers and have really valuable, wonderful contributions to the world. Many people want to be successful artists of various kinds. There's many similarities. But when you get into the details of it, which is where it gets fascinating, it's always very different. So to me it was, I think, essential. I think it was a critical thing I did to actually write down my ideal scene. And I realized when I did that, the day I turned 30, when I was a poverty case in an Oakland slum apartment with no job and no money, I immediately had this image of myself strolling around a big white house on a hill with nothing to do for the day, very little on my schedule, lots of time to just stroll around and ponder these things even, think about these things. And to this day, I do that every morning, and I do that many afternoons, and I'll remind myself, this is it for me. This is my ideal scene. We can even forget what our ideal is if we don't keep it in mind. We can forget are the moments in our lives that have been enlightening. We can forget those peak experiences and those moments when we absolutely knew what we're here for and all this wonderful stuff. We can forget it. I have a great quote from Houston Smith up here on my wall. And the quote is, "Our opportunity as human beings is to transform flashes of illumination into abiding light." That is my ideal scene. To be in a state of abiding light, to have a life of ease, of grace, ease, and lightness. That's my ideal. I realize when I focus on it, that's all internal. It's not dependent on anything out there in the world whatsoever. My real ideal is not dependent on anything out there. The important part of my ideal scene is all up to me. A life of ease and lightness, that's all up to me to create within. Now, the other parts of my ideal scene, the big White House on the Hill, okay, that took some doing, that took some focusing, that took some work in the world. And so I made a plan. I made a plan on paper, and I started taking the steps I could take. My first 5 years between the plan and the realization of the plan were really a difficult struggle. And that's what I never want to forget, because it makes me a much better teacher of this stuff. To remember the struggle, remember how hard it was for me to save $1,000 to buy a truck when I started my little publishing company when I was 30. I had no job, I had no vehicle even. And the first thing I had to do, I started making a little plan. It was, well, get a job, any job, to finance my publishing. And I got this 40-hour-a-week typesetting job. Paid me $5.50 an hour, because this was 1976, 77. And I tried to save 20%, and I started doing my first few little projects. I did an album called Breathe that actually started selling, an album on my music. And I did a few little books. And the fourth book I did was called Creative Visualization. It was by Shakti Gawain. And we started selling. We started building something. But we still had no money. It was still this struggle. I remember trying to save $1,000 to buy a truck. I needed a truck. And I just couldn't. I couldn't save that $1,000. So it's great for me to remember that struggle, because it's been so long ago now, it's easy to forget. But remembering really helps me to appreciate how much of a struggle it can be at first. It's all your beliefs. If you believe it's a struggle, which I did, then it is a struggle. And I've talked about that at length before. Our reality corresponds to our beliefs, and we can change our beliefs. And when we do, our entire reality changes, our world changes, we change, everything changes. As soon as we let go of that fear-based belief that life is a struggle, and instead move on to a much more expansive belief that it does not need to be a struggle. In fact, it can be easy and relaxed. We do live in an abundant universe, tremendously abundant universe. It's not one of scarcity. My beliefs shifted and my whole reality shifted as a result. And somewhere along the line, I remember vividly, somewhere along the line, I started to trust myself more. I think it was at my financial low, at the worst part, my financial bottom, in a way, was at 35 when I was $65,000 in credit card debt, and I was struggling, and my company was on the verge of bankruptcy, and it was all this struggle. I've talked about that before. I did this core belief process that I often talk about, where I got down to seeing that my belief was, I'm a fool with money. I'm out of control. I'm just an idiot with money. A fool and his money are soon parted. That was my belief. And I started affirming the exact opposite of that. I started affirming, I am sensible and in control of my finances. I'm creating total financial success. I just started saying that over and over and over whenever that anxiety about money would arise. I said it thousands of times until it got imprinted in not only my conscious mind, but my subconscious. Grabbed it and started running with it and started showing me what to do. And it did become simple. Money became very simple. Money is not complicated at all. You just need to make more than you spend. It involves very simple elementary math and everything. And somewhere along the line, things shifted from me constantly looking for somebody else out there to show me what to do because I didn't know what to do. I'd never studied business. I was the inexperienced fool with money who had an idea that I was passionate about, but I had no ability to implement the idea. So I kept looking out there. I kept talking to consultants. And I had a partner who was just like me at first, and we kept hiring these different consultants. And 90% of what they taught us was a total waste of time. And I kept looking out there for somebody with the answers. And it was the same with my musical career. I kept waiting for some guy to come along with a big cigar and say, "Come here, cat, I'm going to make you a star." I kept waiting for that perfect manager to show me what to do. And in business, I kept waiting, again, for the perfect manager to come around and show me how to run the business. And then, in one of those wake-up call moments, I realized that person wasn't showing up. And they weren't going to show up until I became that manager. And I started trusting myself and listening to myself and realizing I'm unique. I struggled for years. There's so many great writers out there. There's so many great musicians. What right do I have to even write or make music? And the breakthrough I had with that was realizing I am totally unique. Yes, millions of people literally are writing millions of great books and recording millions of great albums. Yes, that is true. But yet no one will write my books, and no one will play my music. And that's true of every one of you. Every one of us is an original. You're an original. No one will do it like you. That became one of those moments that, to me, they call those aha moments or breakthrough moments, realizing that's it. That's what I'm here to do, make my unique contribution. How do I do that? By listening to the voice within me, not by trying to copy others, not by seeing how someone else did it and trying to imitate their way of doing it. No. It was to really do some self-examination and fun self-examination, because I asked myself, what is my dream? How do I really want to live? And I got answers different from other people. One of the first things I zeroed in on, as I've often said, is I don't want this 40-hour work week deal. I remember walking around thinking about that. Where did our concept of a 40-hour work week even come from? Well, the answer I get is it's a totally arbitrary number that was kind of, struck as a compromise between exploitive, dominating managers who wanted people to work far more, and people and unions representing those people who wanted a more reasonable lifestyle. And we came up with 40 hours or so. Europe, they're more like 35 hours or so. But it's all arbitrary. So I asked myself, how many hours do I want to work? Well, that was easy for me. It varies. It depends on what sign the sun is in, I think. It depends on what mood I'm in. It depends on what season it is. And it depends on just my physical energy. But it's around, typically averaged out over a year, maybe 25 hours a week, maybe 30 hours a week. 20 to 30 hours is what works for me. Those are the number of hours that I really enjoy my work. There's nothing I'd rather do than be editing somebody's book or, publishing something or being at a publishing conference or something, running my publishing company. I really enjoy that on a part-time basis. But I wouldn't want to do it full-time. For me, anything I do full-time gets boring. I don't want to do anything full-time. But that's just for me. Do it your own way. If you're totally passionate about something and want to do it 80 hours a week, great. Wonderful. More power to you. Find what works for you and do it your way. Then it always gets down when I talk about this. I always have this question, and at first it used to surprise me, but people say, well, they don't know what their passion is. They really don't know what it is. That surprises me because I always knew. My problem is I have too many passions. I have a dozen different things at any given moment that I would love to do. I'd love to play music. I'd love to get on my writing project. I love speaking like this. I love work in my office. I love hanging out with friends. I have many, many different things. So the people that are looking for their passion, I quote Oprah. She said, if you don't know what your passion is, the very best thing you can do is do whatever you need to do to find out what your passion is. Whether it's taking a retreat or praying or whatever, take the time to really discover what that is. Because you can do it. You can make it work doing what you love to do. That's what I know. That's what a million other financial gurus know. Do what you love and make it work. Then I realized what it gets down to with a lot of people is they're not really connected to that voice within them all the time. We've all had moments where we've heard that voice within loud and clear. In childhood, we were connected with it a lot. But then we do forget. We forget over and over. We all have a voice of deep wisdom within us, not only information and knowledge, but wisdom. We have an inner guide, you could say, and connecting with that inner guide, our own inner guidance, trusting ourselves, trusting our own intuition, is one of the very best things we can do. How do we do that? People ask, how do we do that? They often ask, I have a lot of inner voices. How do I know which inner voice it is? What about those inner voices that are frustrated or angry or jealous or confused? Or how do I know? And I've given that a lot of thought, and I've answered that question a lot of different ways, because there's many ways to access that inner voice. One is through the 3 breaths we did at the beginning of this talk, just taking a deep breath and relaxing your body. Take a deep breath and letting those thoughts go. Take another deep breath and letting everything go. And feeling that more receptive mode. And in that receptive mode, then ask your question. Ask for guidance. Ask, what's the best thing for you to do. And then in a receptive way, listen. And you'll hear something. You will get words that come in your mind. You'll know if they're coming from that inner guidance and intelligence, if those words are calm and clear and loving, and if they feel really good. That is the voice of your own intuition, of your higher self, some people say, of your inner guide, of the wisdom within. It is always calm, clear, insightful. It's very simple in what it says usually, and it always feels good. It feels like the right thing to do. If that doesn't work, if you sit there and listen in confusion or whatever, there's a more elaborate thing you can do that I've learned in Silva Mind Control. And looking back on it, maybe this was one of those life-changing things for me, although I haven't gone back to it a whole lot over the years, but I occasionally still do, where in Silva Mind Control we had this, maybe it was, I think 3 days worth of sessions, different sessions, and they kept having you relax and go down to your level, they called it. And it basically was like those 3 breaths that I start with. And then they had you count down from 10 to 1. Count down and feel like a leaf falling down. And then you get down to your level. Now when I do it in meditation, I count down 10 to 0. And at 0, I let it all go. I'm at 0, everything goes. But traditional Silva Mind Control, you count down to 1 and you're at your level. And then there at a very relaxed place, eyes closed, imagining you're at your level, you imagine your sanctuary, they called it. Imagine a place that you have within you of total peace and relaxation. And you go to your sanctuary, whatever pops up in your imagination. Often it's a place in nature or whatever it is, you go to your sanctuary. And then they had you slowly, you turn around or whatever, and you see in your distance your guide coming to you. And you meet your guide. You can either do this in a way where you feel just totally relaxed and passive and you really are somehow seeing what's going on or feeling. Or you can even just sort of do it in your imagination. If you're saying, I don't see any guide, okay, just imagine what if you could imagine a guide? What would you imagine that guide would be like? Okay, I imagine my guide is this wonderful old person who's radiant. And you know what? That works too. It totally works to just completely make this stuff up. But you basically imagine some kind of inner guide, and you stay in a relaxed place, and you talk to that inner guide, and just listen and watch what kind of advice that inner guide gives you. There you really are connecting with, it's a deeper part of yourself. When you're relaxed, letting that thought go, you immediately go to a place that is deeper than all that agitated thought. Let that agitated thought go. Let it go often through the day. Just do it with even one breath. Just take a breath and relax and let everything go as you relax. And you have a moment. My Zen teacher said, one breath Zen. You can be in Zen. Zen just means meditation. What that means is that moment of no words in your mind. You have that one receptive, relaxed moment. Letting go. We don't have to hang on to anything. We don't have to control anything. We don't have to keep things together. We can completely surrender to what is and completely relax. In fact, it's wonderful to do so. It's eminently healing. In Silva Mind Control, they'd say 1 minute relaxed at your level is worth an hour's worth of sleep in terms of its rejuvenation you imagine meeting that guide, or you just ask, guide me. I do it every morning. I walk outside. I let everything go. Then I always say something I'm grateful for. I pray. I say thank you for something. Today it was a particular cloud. It was just a normal cloud, but somehow, as I looked at it, I realized how miraculous clouds are, how wonderful, how essential to life. I said, thank you for this cloud. Then I let all thought go again, and I just say, guide me. And so often, whatever the situation in my life, whatever it is, I get the same answer. So often it just says, love, 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 love everything, love yourself, love everyone, love everything. Love is the answer, love is the key. Then other days I get other things, but I always get some great, gentle guidance. Helps me through the day. And there have been many situations at work. Often apparent conflicts will come up. One time I was sitting between two different women that were completely disagreed with each other. One was insisting on something in order to resolve this thing we had. I won't go into details. It doesn't matter. But the other said, absolutely not. She didn't understand. She was just, we had to do it this way, and the other, no, we had to do it that way. And they were completely locked and completely stuck. And the options that they started to imagine were ugly, like lawyers. No, avoid lawyers, avoid lawsuits. That's a war, that's ugly. Always mediate, always, always, always. Go for first solving it yourself. And I remember in that particular instance, I just relaxed. I said, wait a second. I took a breath. I let it go. I prayed for guidance. And in that case, something came up that at first seemed totally off the wall. I said, wait, this sounds totally off the wall, but for some reason, I'm thinking of this other thing over here that they weren't even considering. It wasn't even part of the equation they were grappling with. There's this other element here. And we started kicking it around and realizing we can adjust this other thing over here, and that would resolve the thing they were grappling with in a way that both of them were happy. We came to a win-win thing. That's the kind of guidance you can get. Sometimes it really allows you to step back from the things that our active minds have gotten locked into, the solutions that we think we need, the parameters of those solutions. We can step way back. No, there's a much broader solution. There's always an infinite number of possibilities. So you learn to find that guidance within yourself. People often ask me specific questions, and I often feel like saying, and often I do say, don't ask me. Ask yourself. In fact, I don't want to give you an answer. The answer has to come from within you. I can give you the totally wrong answer. There's times when the right thing to do is just to let it go and forget it. And there's other times when the right thing to do is stick with it, be persistent. There's times when, one thing is the right thing to do, and there's other times when in the same situation, the absolute opposite thing is the right thing to do. So when you ask other people for advice, what do they know? They don't know. All they know is what their own inner guidance tells them. The answers need to come from within you. Maybe this is something I guess I've sort of done. Ask your imaginary self, or ask an imaginary friend within you for advice or something. Trick yourself. Just ask, or this. Okay, if you can't find this inner guidance, you can't find the right words, okay, say to yourself, what if I knew the answer? What would that answer be? What if I could imagine somebody? I can't, but say I can. Say I can imagine somebody within me that knew the answer. So what would that answer be? You just might get an answer. You really might get an answer. All right. I have talked enough. Let me open it up for questions. I'll click you on the question and answer format here. I think you hit... Yes, all callers are muted, and to come in and ask a question or give any kind of comment, just press *6.
Mark?
Yes.
What do you say to help people who do tend to jump from one idea to another idea and then really do have a hard time with completion? Can you give any techniques on how to focus on one thing or at least complete a couple of things if you're doing multiple things?
Right. I mean, I've definitely dealt with that myself. I've always got tons of half-started or barely started things and laying around. But definitely the theme for tonight is I would try to help that person find the solution within them. Really find the ones that come up to focus on and complete. There is a time to really be persistent and bring something to completion. There is a time to schedule something, to give it a deadline, to say, by next month I'm going to have completed this. I'll do that in my calendar. I'll put down a date when I want to have a project completed. And then I'll affirm that I'm completing it in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way, in its own perfect time, which in a way kind of contradicts having a deadline. And often my deadlines slide, but things do then tend to get completed in their own perfect time. So there is a time to be persistent. Definitely. And focused. Put something in your calendar. Schedule part of your day for it. And go for it and do it and complete. There's definitely a time for that. There's also a time when if you get stressed out about it or there's definitely a time to let it go. Let it go. Let go and let God, as they say in Unity Church. Let it be done in its own perfect time. And quit pushing now. Just relax. Relax and enjoy the ride. Relax and enjoy the moment. And only you know within your heart when's the time to act and when's the time to kick back. And act when that energy's there. And then kick back as soon as it departs. I'll do that. Sometimes I'll sit down to write and I will literally... Sometimes it just won't happen at all. It won't happen. Sometimes it'll happen for 10 or 15 minutes, or I'll get one good sentence or something. And then I'll go lay down, even though I've just gotten up, had my strong coffee, said my prayer, that I sit down, okay, I'm going to do some work. I'm going to work on this. My work times completely vary from 0 minutes to a few hours, depending on the energy. So just trust yourself, trust your own energy. And certain things are very essential to you to do and do those. And certain things, you don't even need to do. Just let them go. Is that helpful at all?
Yes, it was very helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Mark. This is Ivy. Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering, if you have like a vision for your society, you want to see certain things improve, like higher quality child care, or reduce weekly work hours because you see so many people stressed out and not having enough time for your family. Do you think it would be useful to make like an ideal scene for your society? Or do you think that maybe that wouldn't really be effective because it's just one person doing that? It would have to be like a critical mass for your society to transform. I wouldn't be enough. Other people would have to do it too and hold that vision too.
Right. I think it's a wonderful thing to do, though, and to share with others. And who was it? Some brilliant person once said, this quote is floating around the internet, that all change of society always started with just a few people. Just a few people imagining it is where it starts. That I loved the 60s, and I think maybe now it's getting shades of that kind of energy, where one thing I loved about the 60s, I saw over and over, we would get an idea or hear from somebody, or just, it felt like we were coming up with an idea, and then that idea just spread. Millions of people had that idea. And that's happening now. It's definitely happening with the environment. It's happening with a whole bunch of stuff. And there are our wonderful visionaries, the Barbara Marx Hubbards of the world, the Rianne Eislers of the world, who dare to dream of a picture of a society that works and to put it out there. I think it's wonderful to come up with an ideal scene for society. Within that, you may discover some very specific step, like the first thing you mentioned was childcare. Maybe there's something, that maybe you have something you can really contribute there.
Well, I'm not interested in opening a childcare center of my own, but I would like to see higher quality childcare be available to people in general.
Yes.
Because lots of parents are complaining that only the higher quality childcare is not very affordable, and
I've been talking about childcare a lot. The Northern European countries, most of them have absolutely free, government-run, socialized childcare. I don't know why socialized is such a stigma, such a negative word. It's not negative to me. I think it's wonderful. You go to, Denmark or in Scandinavia, they have free, beautifully run childcare centers for everybody. That frees all the women up to work. And that's that's what their taxes pay for. Not only free medical care for all, but child care as well.
Yeah.
And if they can do it, we can do it.
Yeah.
Spend a little less on foreign wars, and we would finance incredible health care and child care and educational centers.
Yeah.
Once again, a great school system for all.
Yeah. Yeah, childcare is just one example. There's so many things that, you see in every day, how people are stressed out, they don't have time for a family, and, I don't want to be that way. I don't want that kind of life for me and my children. And I was just wondering, what's my first step? Do I, write an ideal scene and hold that vision, and then things will start to happen where I can make a contribution to this, a revolution or something?
I think it's wonderful to write an ideal scene for your ideal society. But then it sounds like, it's very important to write your own ideal scene, of course, and in there deal with the issues you need to deal with and make it work for you, ideally. Your ideal scene, then, if you're a working parent, then, would obviously include some kind of child care that works for you.
Okay.
And so, I think it's wonderful to come up with an ideal scene for how to improve our whole society and share that or see where that leads you. But also, do your own ideal scene for sure, and within that, you'll deal with certain things, and I do know. It's such a challenge for so many people. I think my wife's been off in Hawaii, so I've been a single parent. So I've been a single working parent here. Now, fortunately, my hours are completely flexible, but I think these people with jobs without flexible hours that are single parents, that's a real challenge. And to do that in an easy and relaxed manner in a healthy and positive way is a great challenge. Great challenge. Everyone has their own challenges to deal with, and by writing an ideal scene for yourself, that can lead you to all kinds of creative solutions.
Okay.
Hello, Mark.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. This is me, Beakus, calling from Atlanta. I was I enjoyed this talk. I thought it was very right for me because I've been listening to a lot of gurus, but I haven't really known exactly what I want to do with my life. And even though I have an inkling, but I'm still not sure. Now I wanted to ask you about this, but when I set my ideal scene and I do the affirmations and all those things, all my old conditioned behavior, the conditioned responses that I have been internalizing my whole life, they come back and I get off track very easily. Now I wanted to ask you, is it necessary that we let go of the old behaviors before we start affirming? Like is there something that we can do to let go, or is this process or should we just be focused on the positive, the ideal scene, and then the old stuff just goes away? How has that worked in your life?
I think that's it exactly. Just focus on that ideal scene. Keep affirming. Literally, like in that movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? By affirming the new patterns and by, when you're consciously aware of it, taking the steps that are good for you and affirming those positive things, you're literally creating these new synapses, and the old synapses will over time just slowly atrophy and they'll finally just break up. But yeah, you can't I wouldn't ever say to yourself you have to first deal with all that old conditioning, as you say, or all those doubts and fears. No. Just start affirming. Affirmations are so powerful. They can overcome years of negative conditioning, as you call it, or limiting beliefs, or terrible programming.
But my challenge is, I do the affirmation, but I don't do them. Long and consistent enough, and that's why they don't work because I need to. I don't do it enough.
Let me stop you right there. Stop telling yourself that. You don't need to. It's like all the people that meditate but really secretly think, oh, they're not meditating enough. All you need to do is affirm as much as you affirm. And just try to keep remembering to affirm, especially when those feelings of anxiety come up, especially when doubts and fears arrive, or you start undermining yourself, or saying you catch yourself with a negative thought, saying, oh, it's so hard. Just catch that. And you don't even need to catch every one. If you catch one out of 100 negative thoughts and you reprogram that thought, you catch yourself finally and say, oh, there I am thinking again, it's so hard. Okay, cancel. In an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way, I'm now creating the life of my dreams. Or something. You just start telling yourself those affirmations, and don't ever think you're not doing it enough. Just keep doing as much as you're doing, and then, especially when it becomes obvious to you, oh, you're in a funk, you're really down because you're thinking it's so hard and this really is a struggle, that's when you stop yourself and start affirming, I am now creating the life of my dreams in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way, in its own perfect time for the highest good of all. That's when an affirmation can overcome years. I've seen it in my own experience. The right affirmation can overcome years' worth of really horrendously bad conditioning.
Now, the other question is, how did you, it seems to me like, I know in one of the previous calls you said that, you give the same advice, but a lot of people, they become like children and they don't want to change. Like, how did you, I find one of the things that stops me is the lack of commitment. How did you how do you increase your willingness and your commitment to actually go through the changes necessary to make the ideal scene a reality?
I just got so tired, literally tired, of my frustration. I'd had enough of it. I said, that it was sort of okay in my late 20s to be a poverty case, but the day I turned 30, I said, I don't want to be a poverty case anymore. This is no fun scrounging around for $1.25 for a latte I don't want to live that way. I got frustrated enough to just want to change and to find this is no longer acceptable. Being a poverty case finally was no longer acceptable for me. I wanted to do. I wanted to write books and make music, and I didn't have the freedom to do that as long as I had to go, do some job I didn't like to make enough money to barely pay the rent. And so in a way, I'm grateful for all my anxiety and frustration. I'm grateful for how neurotic I was in my early 20s. If I wasn't that neurotic, like many of my friends, I was amazed. They seemed fairly happy with their lives, and they settled down and got jobs, and they got married and had kids and seemed to enjoy life. That was not an option for me at all in my 20s. I remember being in shock, being invited to a wedding. A friend of mine is getting married. It was... I couldn't conceive of getting married because and looking back, I know exactly why, because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And so my anxiety, and it was pretty bad anxiety, pretty constant unpleasantness and discomfort. And now I'm very grateful for that because that drove me into doing all the weird things I did, getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go to a Zen center and being in this Tibetan center and wandering around doing what I did. It was because I had so much anxiety. And my current, life was not acceptable to me at some level.
But your life really changed when you started shifting your predominant thoughts, right? When you started affirming that ideal scene, then your thoughts changed, then your reality started to change, right?
Yep. It totally shifted. I went from really believing that life was a bitch and then you die, as somebody once, I saw on a T-shirt in Berkeley, life is a bitch and then you die, which is actually Buddha's first great truth. But I started realizing his second, third, and fourth truth. It's true life is a bitch and then you die, but it's also true that you don't need to suffer. There is a state of mind beyond suffering. You can find a place beyond suffering, and you can thoroughly enjoy life. You can enjoy every moment of life.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you very much for being persistent at your gift and sharing your gift with the world and with us, This is awesome. This is my first time listening in. And I just wanted to, first of all, ask you if you could give that quote again that you said you had on your wall about our opportunity as human beings.
Right. That's
transform. I didn't catch all of it. Flashes of imagination into abiding light. Was that what it was?
Yes, Houston Smith. And yes, it's so beautiful. Our opportunity as human beings, and he's studied Tibetan Buddhism a lot. They over and over say this is a great opportunity. Being born a human being is a huge, tremendous opportunity for all of us, and don't forget it and don't waste it. So he says, our opportunity as human beings is to transform flashes of illumination. Into abiding light.
Okay.
Beautifully put. And because we've all had those flashes of illumination. We've all had those moments.
Yes, we have.
They may be very temporary, but they're those moments. And so he says that's our opportunity. We have an opportunity as a human being to transform those flashes of illumination into abiding light.
And we can only do that if we're paying attention, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to say, I heard a previous questioner, and I can identify with him that, you know all these things, but you just don't stick to it, and then it seems like nothing comes accomplished. And somebody before, there's an author that I've read, his name is Keith Harrow, and he writes a book called Attitude of Gratitude. And one of the things that he suggested was that we did a list of affirmations and put it someplace that we see every day. Like, if we go to the bathroom every morning, put it up on the wall in the bathroom.
Yes.
And just force yourself to say it.
Yes.
Just someplace in the house that you know you have to go, and just start saying it, but try to start saying it early in the morning, first when you get up. That is a part of your way of presenting and opening up your day. And I'm going to start doing that. I never did it before, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to get a piece of cartridge paper. I'm going to put my affirmation, 10 of them down on there, and I'm going to laminate it and put it in the bathroom. So I hope that will help somebody else.
Great. That's wonderful. Yeah, I've often said I carry my list of affirmations around with me in my back pocket. And often when I go to the bathroom, I just pull it out.
Okay. That's another good way.
So, but yeah, in fact, when I started this, I'm glad you reminded me. I did often in the morning, although I'm not disciplined at all, so it wasn't every morning at all, but a couple times a week at least, I would read through my list of affirmations real early in the morning. That is a great time. Your mind is more open. You're still connected somehow. In sleep, we reconnect with the whole. Eckhart Tolle says in sleep we rejoin the unconditioned, he calls it, the whole. And then, so when you wake up, you're still connected in some deep way. And what you say and think first thing in the morning is very powerful. So yes, it's wonderful. First thing in the morning when you go to the bathroom, just sit there and read through your list. That's great.
Mark?
Yes.
Hi, this is Kim.
Hi, Kim.
I just realized, as I was getting on, I've been listening to you for a while, and I was doing that thing that kind of what we're talking about was like, okay, I've got to ask a question. What's my question going to be? Making those decisions. Should I talk? Shouldn't I talk? And then as you were talking and I was listening, I just decided that what I really want to do is just make an observation of appreciation, in that what I hear from you that's the most valuable thing for me is that what it is we're here to do is really an emergent discovery. And it's there anyway.
Nice phrase, yes.
And I spend so much time trying to, like the whole meditation, okay, am I doing this right?
Right,
adjusting in the categories. How is this going to happen? How do I do this? No, did I do this right? And I think you were the first person I heard that kind of gave permission of like, there's all these like preferential ways or preferred ways of doing meditation, but, just do it, lie on your back if that's what you want to do, and don't get wrapped up. And so I really just appreciate that, and it just opens up the permission for me.
Good. Yes, there's no wrong way to do it even. And I love what Eckhart says. He gave a whole talk on meditation, but he really didn't talk about meditation, except to say, well, don't let your meditation interfere with your meditation. Mm-hmm. And he really meant, don't let sitting in a chair in a certain time, a certain posture that you call meditation, interfere with the real important work, which is every moment being here now.
I'm having this incredible experience tonight because 20 years ago tomorrow, I gave birth to my daughter, my oldest daughter, in the foothills of the Missouri Ozarks. And I had to follow this path because I left Detroit and I had to go across the Mississippi. I had gone to school. I was 8 months pregnant, and I was determined I was going to. Excuse me. Now I have call waiting coming in. But anyway, I did it my way. I thought it through. Everything was perfect, and now she's out in California now on this adventure that's scaring the daylights out of me, but just that initial birthing experience when everybody else said, oh, my God, you're crazy, it's too dangerous, is really what's allowing me to just kind of give, and so having you, kind of discovering you and people, it's perfect. So thank you.
Great. Good. You listened to your own intuition and did it your way. And well,
we need reminders like you.
We do.
That's
we
important.
do need reminders. Sometimes, and we know it all. We know it. We just keep forgetting over and over and over, especially when things get a little challenging or difficult. That's when we tend to forget, and that's when the best thing to do is remember what we know then. And even remember, to get, I was thinking of that word enlightenment the other day. As I stroll around my house, I think about these things, and people define it so differently, And I thought, well, my definition, I loved the way Eckhart defined enlightenment. He just says it's a felt awareness of your being. And he just means that that field of awareness that you sense when you relax and you aren't thinking. That's it. That's enlightenment. And I thought, well, for me, and it's up to each person to really define enlightenment. Might as well define enlightenment, too, as well as defining what success really means for you. And because once you define it, you can realize it. And so success for me, I've defined that and I've realized it. Enlightenment, what is that for me really? And what I came up with, what my inner guidance pointed, the words that are good for me is, enlightenment is what is. It is reality. In reality, we are abiding light. We are constantly connected. In reality, we are only the thing that lasts, and everything else that fades away are not what we are. So we are not our thoughts. We are not our feelings or perceptions or even this physical body. We are this abiding light, this field of awareness that is what is. We are enlightened. That's what is. That's reality. We are enlightened. We just forget it. We forget it with all these thoughts and feelings and perceptions and these very busy, complex, amazing minds we've developed. We forget who we are. I've wandered off your comment a bit.
No, it's perfect.
That's just what I was thinking recently, wandering around my house.
It fits right in line with the analogy that you've given about the plane being off course. That's helped me so many times because I kind of envision that emergent thread is there, even whether I know it or not.
Right.
Because, did you ever find that as things were starting to progress for you, then when you'd look back, you went, "Oh, I had that clue."
Sure. Right.
Wow, that happened 10 years ago when I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but there was a little spark of some. I've been having that happen more and more lately, and good, so, I know. Yes, I remember moments, even in childhood or early 20s when I was when I understood so much. I definitely had, like Houston Smith says, those flashes of illumination. Mm-hmm.
Definitely had those flashes of illumination, but then they would be forgotten. It wasn't abiding light. I think I remember doing a play in my when I was 20, 21, and one of the lines from the play was, "Oh, we know, but we forget over and over and over. We always forget." And I thought, yep, that kind of sums up the path for most of us. It's just remembering what we know and remembering who we are really. every teacher of enlightenment tells that. They point within and say, "You got it. You've had it all the time. It's who you are. It's what is. It's the nature of reality."
Wasn't it the one of the last lines in Wizard of Oz? Baum was. I'm not from New York, but Baum was raised near here, and but one of the last lines when she needs to click the ruby slippers together, and the good fairy, the good witch says, you could have done this all along, and she said, "Well, why didn't you tell me?" She said, "Because you wouldn't have believed me."
Yes.
And story of our lives, huh?
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Sure, thank you. Anyone else want to?
Mark, can I ask you one last question?
Sure.
Yeah, do you believe in karma?
Oh, totally. Karma is part of what is. Karma is just cause and effect. I mean, I think I don't think there's a nifty word for it in English, which means there isn't a real clear concept of it in English. And that's why we talk about karma. Karma is the nature of existence. Karma is absolute. Every thought, word, and deed that we do has its effect. And we are the result of all of our past actions, of our thoughts, words, and deeds. James Allen in As You Think, or As a Man Thinketh, my version is called As You Think. I think that book is all about karma for the West. Karma for the West, it could be called.
Yeah, because most people, seem to live at the effect of the result. Like they complain, or they see the circumstances, and they stay at the effect. But if we can simply learn to see the cause, about what is causing, and the thought is always the origin. If we can change the, like you say a lot, like if you get the inside right, if we can get that thought right, then the effects start to line up.
Yep.
But it's not. The thing that I was questioning was, it's not like if we make a sin. I don't know. I don't understand. Karma doesn't mean like necessarily like if you make a mistake, like a sin, right? It's a little different, right?
Yeah, I've even grappled with the word sin. I think sin has been really misused, and I like what Eckhart says. He says the real translation of sin is an arrow missing its mark. So you're missing the mark. Or it could be said, a wrong action that has negative consequences karmically. It's creating bad karma, you could say.
And why does that happen? Is that because we're not aware? We're thinking without awareness?
Yeah, it's all without awareness. That's Buddha said. Buddha never talked about sin. He just said it's ignorance. It's lack of understanding. Our lack of understanding of certain things causes us to do certain things. Then that we have to deal with the repercussions of it. And so it ultimately completely empowers us. We're not victims. We're not helpless, hopeless victims of these forces beyond us. We are really the creators of our entire life situation. And karma is absolute. And it's physics and chemistry and karma. It's science. It's cause and effect.
And do you believe like there's do you know the law of rhythm? I was just reading a book, and it was by a wonderful guy. He says that there's a season for everything, and he says that you should always notice when it's the right time to begin something, and all these laws he was talking about, ancient laws. Do you believe that? Like there's a time for everything?
Oh, sure. Definitely. Yes.
Mark, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, I wrote down your affirmation about finances because I've heard you say it before, and it bears writing down as many times as I hear it. I think it's brilliant. I am sensible and in control of my finances. And you had one right after that about success, and I didn't write that down.
Yes, this is what I came up with under I am sensible and in control of my finances. I'm creating total financial success was what I came up with. I had this image of total financial success.
Thank you.
And I'd often tack on in an easy and relaxed manner in a healthy and positive way. And sometimes even in its own perfect time for the highest good of all. And I think that, those words have really helped too. And that for the highest good of all has really helped guide me over the years too. It's all for the highest good of all. It can work for the highest good of all.
I love those. It's what I have you for. And I also wanted to offer some encouragement to the woman who was commenting on trying to visualize a better world. I don't know if this matches her job description or her task, but I've certainly found in my life where I envision something that I want to happen or may even want to contribute, get some pushback, so it doesn't happen. I get a no or whatever step forward I make doesn't latch on. It doesn't work. And some weeks, months, or a year later, it happens anyway. So I think that there's some part of our visualization that is powerful, that it puts it out there and then somebody else who's the right person can latch onto it.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. It's true. We're dealing with powers that we don't comprehend. They're beyond our ability to understand. But this tremendous power is unleashed when we dare to dream and we dare to affirm and even dream of a world that works for all. So I encourage her and all of us to do an ideal scene for the whole world. Why not? It unleashes some kind of force. You're right. That it's mysterious but very powerful.
Imagine if everybody started their own ideal scene. We could have a whole shift in the whole consciousness, right?
Right. Who knows? Well, it's been almost an hour. I thank you all. Oh, I did want to say, my website, it needs updating. I am doing a visionary business mentoring program, but it's not going to start till January. Initially, we were going to start in October, and then moved it to November, and then I realized, no, November, when you asked, is there a season for everything? Yes, and November is not the month to start a 14-week program, the holidays and everything. No. So we're going to start it in January, and there will be more details on my website. So I thank you all for coming, and hope there was some good stuff, and
it's excellent.
I'll be talking to you next month, first Wednesday of December.
Thank you,
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Be well.
Thank you.
Be well, too.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Mark, are you still there?